Welcome back to the double leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Picks. The other half of the show, the parlay. Joining me in to break down some UFC Vegas 80. Let's get into We are back with some UFC action, and once again, we're back at the Apex. We were just there, UFC Vegas 79, when Fiziev blew his knee out. Hopefully, we don't get any injuries at UFC Vegas 80, but we got 12 fights to break down and one replacement that just happened a couple hours ago. So we'll go over that, and we're going to go over all 12 fights, give you our predictions, and a little bit of insight on the fighters. What do you think of the card overall? Pretty solid for an Apex card. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a solid Apex card, and especially coming off of a week off. Like, everybody's going to be looking forward to this. Hopefully we get some good fights. But speaking of main events, Fiziev in the last UFC card going down with the injury, it seems like this last 12 months, the main events kind of been cursed because we got so many that have fallen off. And we need to get out of that funk because I feel like we've had so many main events just kind of ruined by injury lately over the last year.
Yeah, this main event, Grant Dawson, Bobby Green, I believe it was somewhat of a short notice main event because it was scheduled, I think, about a month ago. So about 4 to 5 week camp for both these guys. And lightweight, once again, so those are always fun to watch. Grappler versus striker matchup in this one. But as I said, we're going to go through all the fights. If you want the bets, jump in the premium membership. Link is in the description for that. We'll give you our picks here, our predictions. But if you want the official bets, you got to go to the premium membership there. They'll be available for instant download if you just want this card on Friday. Stay up to date at the double leg on Instagram when that is available. But the premium membership gets you every single card every week for less than $1 a day. Without any further ado, let's get into it with the main event. Bobby Green stepping in at plus 325 against Grant Dawson at minus 425. Grant Dawson, 29 years of age, 5'10", and you see the record there, 21-1. Over under 4.5 rounds, plus 170 for the over, minus 210 for the under. Bobby Green coming off the win over Tony Ferguson, where he was a big favorite. Now he's going to come in as a pretty sizable underdog in this one. You see the age difference there, 8 years younger is Grant Dawson. Bobby Green been around for a very long time. Should be an interesting matchup because we know Grant Dawson's ground game. We saw it in his last fight against Demir Ismagulov. Super dominant when it comes to that. And then on the feet, he just probably going to be outmatched on the feet against Bobby Green. The boxing is always super good. A lot of volume he's going to throw at you. Not the biggest power puncher, but that pace can get to these guys. And it definitely got to Tony Ferguson. Get to round 2, round 3. He just started piecing them up. So if you're Grant Dawson, it really comes down to you're probably not going to want to mess around on the feet. Just go to the ground and do what you do there. But it's 5 rounds. So if you can't get him out of there early, we're getting into the late rounds, and it could get dicey as a big favorite. But who do you think in this one?
Yeah, it is a really interesting fight because stylistically, when you got Green with the excellent striking, he's fast, he's elusive. And then you got Grant Dawson with the excellent wrestling and grappling where he can just absolutely control and grind guys down. Just looking at Grant, though, the one thing I really, really like about him and how he's kind of developed as a UFC level fighter is when he came into the UFC, like, he doesn't have a big name. He's not talking shit. He doesn't have that style where he's getting these crazy knockouts where everybody sees his highlight reel. And I think that is kind of a benefit to him. And it's kind of allowed him to come into the UFC, take things slow. Like, he starts off with Julian Rosa, Mike Trezano, Derek Minner, Leonardo Santos, and then gets into Jared Gordon and Mark Madsen and Demir Ismagulov, and just keeps winning and winning and getting better and better. Like, he didn't have to rush into the top 10. He didn't have to rush into these big fights against, these top level guys quite yet. And I think that's just a benefit to him. His grappling is super, super good. I think everybody knows that by now. And if they didn't, then the Demir Ismagulov fight probably turned people on to how good it really is. Because Ismagulov's a guy who's 24-2 with a almost flawless record, and then he went in there and just dominated him, which was really, really impressive. Bobby Green, last fight submits Tony Ferguson, showed that he can grapple as well. He's always had some decent wrestling in his back pocket, but he's a striker first, and he's really good on the feet as well. I just wish this was a Bobby Green of maybe like 4 to 5 years ago. I feel like Bobby, not that he's lost a step or he's getting slower, but I think some of these younger guys are just going to cause problems closing the distance, especially a guy like Dawson, who once he gets his hands locked, he's big, he's strong, and he's more than likely going to drag you down to the ground. And even if Bobby can stuff some of these takedowns early or throughout the fight, it's only going to take that one takedown in each round to really, I think, for Grant Dawson to be able to get on the ground and do some work, because his control is that good. And if Bobby, tries to get up like he has in the past, he's really good at getting back to his feet. But if he leaves that neck exposed, Grant Dawson could find it very easily because the submission game's off the charts. Love Bobby Green, love the style, love the, he dresses crazy, he talks crazy, and he always brings the fight. But I think this is a bad style for him, honestly. I think Grant Dawson's probably improving on the feet more than you would think. I just don't think he ever has to show it. He's at a phenomenal camp. And, gets Bobby Green on the ground, I think Green could be in a lot of trouble, especially early in this fight. The one knock I do, not even a knock on Grant Dawson, but there are fights you've seen him get really, really tired in 3-round fights. If he gets really tired here, that could be bad news, because Bobby Green's got pretty good cardio. And if Grant Dawson can't get the takedowns in rounds 4 and 5, I think Green could really turn up the volume and piece him up. But for the pick, I'm going Grant Dawson. I think he does just fine in this one.
Yeah, I've been a big Grant Dawson guy for his last 3 fights, especially after that one against Jared Gordon. He had that draw against Ricky Glenn, who's also on this card. And what we saw in that one was he kind of gassed out in the 3rd round, and that was a 10-8 round, 3rd round, I believe, and that's why it was a draw. But then he switches camp, goes to American Top Team, and comes back against Jared Gordon, round 3 submission win there. And then goes against Mark Madsen, another round 3 submission. And then Ismagulov, just complete domination in that fight, which was damn near a pick'em. 12 minutes of control time in that one. He looks really dang good. I mean, the grappling is just off the charts. When he gets you down, like, you're not getting back up. And I was listening to an interview of him, and I forget who was with, so I apologize for that. But he laid it out perfectly, like what he's got to do in this fight. So that's really encouraging to look at, because a lot of times, grapplers may want to prove themselves on the feet, but he knows that's where he has the advantage in this one. And he's like, I just got to pick my spots. Once I get him on the ground, I know he's not going to get up because I have that level of top control on the ground. And Ismagulov is somewhat of a similar opponent as to Bobby Green. Not a lot of power, going to really try to put the volume on you, good jab, and work around the outside. Actually has some pretty good grappling himself. So that's really encouraging for Grant Dawson. For Bobby Green, I just look at where he's been in these fights. Like, he's not really coming through as an underdog in a lot of these fights. A lot of the fights that he's winning, he's usually a favorite. In this one, he's a big dog. He's also got a loss to Thiago Moises, who is Grant Dawson's best buddy at American Top Team. That was back in 2020. So Thiago can get it done back then. I think Grant Dawson comes in here and gets it done. I do believe if he gets him to the ground, I do think he could sub him. Bobby Green, he's been fairly durable as far as not getting finished. He's only been subbed twice in his long career. And we saw against Islam, that was a short notice fight. But once Islam got him on the ground, he didn't have the best way to get out of it. And I think Grant Dawson, if he gets him down, like he said, I don't think he's getting back up. So I think he'll just try to wear him down. I would maybe even think, round 2, round 3, round 4 subs type thing. The ground and pound isn't crazy for Grant on top. He's just going to look to stay on top and flow through those exchanges. So I do think he probably gets a submission, probably round 2, round 3, round 4. Round 3 would probably be where I'd put it at the best. But yeah, I got to go with Grant in this one. I think he's good. I think he's, if you have that in your pocket where you have just a really strong grappling game, that's always something that people are going to fear. Bobby Green may be a little bit more hesitant on the feet to throw anything, throw kicks, stuff like that, because you don't want to get caught and get taken down. So I like Grant, and I think he gets it done here. Kind of a weird matchup though. Going back from Demir, Bobby Green's not ranked. I think they just needed a main event here because it was kind of short notice, and I think Dawson gets a good spot for another dub here. I'll take him. Co-main event: Joe Pyfer coming back into action at minus 450 against Abdul Razak Alhassan, sitting at plus 325. Over under 1.5 rounds, plus 175 for the over, minus 215 for the under. Joe Pyfer, 4-1 in his last 5, undefeated in the UFC. Abdul Razak Alhassan, 38 years of age. I didn't really realize he was that old until I started looking at him recently. But yeah, he's been around for a decent amount of time. UFC career has kind of been up and down. He's getting a spot here against Joe Pyfer. It looks like a good spot for Joe Pyfer because you see the height and reach advantage. He's usually going to want to keep this on the feet and stand and bang it out. Abdul Razak does have some pretty good power. But it's an uphill battle, I would say, for him in this one against Joe Pyfer. Should be a good scrap nonetheless. Another wide line. So, taking Joe Pyfer isn't saying anything crazy, but you giving the dog any chance in this one?
Realistically, I don't think he pulls it off. But, I mean, he is one of the guys that if you are betting on a dog, he has qualities that you like to see. He's got the power. He hits really hard. I mean, we saw him against Claudio Ribeiro was kind of a prospect in Abdul's last fight. And he just, put it on him pretty damn early under the fight and, kind of broke him down and finished the fight. But Joe Pyfer just seems like the guy who he's got whatever it is that makes guys stars in the UFC, what makes guys go on these, 6, 7, 8 fight win streaks. He seems like he's got the complete package. I'll go back to the Gerald Meerschaert fight when, he wins in the first round and goes into Gerald's world in grappling and beats him in a grappling match too. Like, I think people forget that Joe Pyfer has good wrestling and grappling abilities. And if he gets to that point in this fight against Abdul, I think he's going to have his way with him, honestly. We've seen Abdul struggle with wrestlers like Jacob Malkoon before. Joe Pyfer, you might be so worried about that big right hand coming in that he can take you down and then land ground and pound. Like, I think this is just a bad matchup for Abdul all around. Like I said, he's got the power. He can land that shot, maybe put Joe Pyfer down, but Joe Pyfer's a tough dude too. We haven't seen anybody really crack the chin ever. Regional scene, contender series, he got hurt, which is why he has a TKO loss. And other than that, nobody's really been able to figure it out. So yeah, I think Joe Pyfer wins. Big favorite kind of sucks betting wise. I wouldn't play the dog here. I think Pyfer comes out, makes a statement, and just keeps climbing up the ranks.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for Joe. Abdul, dangerous with that power, but I don't think he's going to be able to land anything like too crazy on him because Joe, he fights pretty long and he's got pretty like technical striking. I mean, he's a big dude who has big power, but he picks his shots pretty well. And that was really one thing that stood out to me when I was watching his tape, especially in the last fight against Meerschaert, because he knows Meerschaert's probably going to look to try to take him down. He was pretty patient with it, picked his shots, found his shots, and landed them pretty flush. Abdul Razak, a negative strike differential, that's always something that I look at. It's like, if you're looking at a dog, if they got a negative strike differential, it's kind of, wanes me away from looking at that even more. And the big age differential, we always know that stat. It's like 67% or whatever when the winner is younger by 6 years or more. It doesn't look like a fight that I'd be too interested in taking the dog. So I gotta go with Joe Pyfer. He's been through a lot in his life, and I always watch his podcast with Sean Brady, and he seems like he's got a good mentality, a good team around him, and it's encouraging for his UFC career. So I'm gonna go with Joe in this one. I think he probably gets Abdul Razak out in the first or the second round. I do think he's gonna come to try to bang it out, and I do think he'll probably get the better of the exchanges and put him away. Welterweight bout here, Joaquin Buckley coming in at minus 200 against Alex Morono, sitting at plus 165. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 140 for the over, minus 170 for the under. Alex Morono coming back into action, 4-1 in his last 5, and Joaquin Buckley 3-2. His move down to welterweight has looked pretty good so far. He was a 185er for a while, and then decided to move down to 170. It looks like that's a good spot for him there. You see the reach advantage for Joaquin Buckley. He's got those long arms, 5'10" though, and the dude is still jacked at 170. I mean, he's got a good frame, I would say, for 170, even being 5'10". Southpaw striker for Joaquin, orthodox for Alex Morono. It's an interesting one because Morono, he has the least imposing figure, I would say, out of like any welterweight. I mean, the guy, I don't know how you can be in a gym like that long and like not build any muscle. I don't know. I've always thought about this when I look at, UFC fighters that aren't looking like Joaquin Buckley. I mean, it works. Alex Morono has had a great UFC career. We saw him win 4 in a row and then lose to Santiago Ponzinibbio in a fight that he was winning. He got knocked out in the 3rd round, then comes back and beats Tim Means round 2 sub. He's got that BJJ in his back pocket, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Wondering if he's going to have to use it in this one against Joaquin Buckley, but probably a good scrap here. Who are you thinking in this one?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because like Buckley's always dangerous at any point in fights because he swings with ill intent and he has a lot of power. But you dive a little deeper into it. He looks good at 170. He's in shape, but his last win was Andre Fiallo, and that doesn't really age that well considering Fiallo's now on a 4-fight KO losing streak. Does not look good at all. From the moment he gets hit, he's just not the same guy anymore. And then before that, he loses to Chris Curtis, which Chris Curtis is good. And then he loses to Nasruddin Imavov, who's also good. But it tells me like that Chris Curtis and Nasruddin Imavov boxing style can give Buckley problems. And I think it's because he's so good at closing the distance and just coming straight forward on a straight line, throwing that big shot that against guys that move well and are good with their boxing, they can kind of slip and rip them to the body and come upstairs and kind of get off on them that way. And I see the same thing happening with Morono at times in this fight. I think Morono's got really technical boxing. He doesn't hit the hardest. He's not getting all these KOs in the UFC by any means, but he does rack up the strike count. He does land with pretty good accuracy. And overall, if he has to and he gets in some kind of trouble, he's got some grappling in his back pocket. I mean, he is a black belt. He owns his own gym, and I'm pretty sure he's a jiu-jitsu teacher at that gym. Just really, really well-rounded mixed martial artist. I kind of want to give him a pass on that Ponzinibbio loss too, because he came basically off the couch, short notice, I believe, was winning the fight, should have won the fight, and gets put out in the 3rd round when he got a little bit tired. Normally, I'd say Morono has a pretty damn good gas tank. Coming off the couch like that, he'd kind of get a pass from me, making it such a good fight until he got finished against Ponzinibbio. And if he would have beat Ponzinibbio, he'd be on a 6-fight winning streak against guys like Donald Cerrone, Matthew Simmelsberger even. Guys like that. So he's fighting at a high level. And, Buckley is too, but, he's got a couple of losses in there to that technical boxing style. And as an underdog, it's kind of hard to ignore Alex Morono betting wise. For the pick, I'm going to take him here. I think Buckley maybe, can't land that big shot early, start slowing down a little bit. And I could see Morono really putting the volume on here. So I'll take a shot on the dog with Alex Morono.
Yeah, I like Joaquin moving down to 170. I mean, you look at the fights against, Chris Curtis, packs big power. He gets knocked out in that one against Imavov. Imavov is a massive 185er. And it was just clear in that one, like Buckley was outgunned, but he still showed like he's a dog. I mean, he came back in that 3rd round and really left it all out there. So that's encouraging. But then the win against Fiallo, it's like, does it take much to knock out Andre Fiallo at this point? I mean, Tim Means just racked up a TKO win. So I don't know where to put him at in this one. At -200, I don't like it because, like you said, Morono has been around for a while. This is a smart fighter. The only thing that scares me is the chin. It could possibly be, somewhat of a liability. Knocked out by Ponzinibbio, knocked out by Cass Williams. A couple of guys that hold big power. Then he also got knocked down by Matthew Semmelsberger. I would think going into this one, if he doesn't get knocked out, he could probably win a decision just based off of volume. But we've seen the volume of Joaquin, kind of improve over the years. Both guys have a positive striking differential. Joaquin will maybe even mix in a takedown, but like you said, I mean, Morono's got the BJJ. So I don't know if that's the smartest thing to do. I would basically chalk it up to a dog or pass at this one. I'm definitely seeing the value on Morono because of the experience and just the ability to win fights. And Buckley, I don't want to say has like bad fight IQ, but at some points it's just like a little bit wild. For the pick, I'll go with Morono with you just as a dog or pass type of situation. Minus 200 on Buckley, I'm not really liking. If you were to take him, I would probably take him by knockout because he does have that big power going down to 170 from 185. He's going to carry it there. So for the pick, I'll go with Morono as a dog or pass. Lightweight bout, Ricky Glenn coming back after his knockout loss at plus 300 against Drew Dober, sitting at minus 400, who's also coming off of a knockout loss. Finally, the chin gets cracked his last time out. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 130 or plus 175 for the over, minus 215 for the under. Drew Dober coming in at 34 years of age. Same with Ricky Glenn, which is kind of crazy. I thought Ricky Glenn would be a little bit older just based off of he's been a little bit inactive in the past few years. But either way, both men same age. You see the height and differential there for Ricky Glenn, couple inches in advantage. Should be a decent scrap of another wide line that we're getting here. Who are you liking in this one?
Yeah, I like Dober to get it done. I didn't really like what I saw out of Ricky Glenn in his last fight. I thought he looked a little slower. I thought he just looked older. And even though he's not, super old for the sport, he just looked like he'd lost a step. And maybe, the inactivity has something to do with that. He does hold power. I mean, he's got a lot of knockouts on his record. He's going to have to land something in this fight significant to put Drew Dober out. I know Drew Dober is coming off of the KO loss, the TKO loss, but that was Matt Frivola. And I think we're starting to learn that Matt Frivola is one of the hardest hitting fighters in that division. And, even Dober kind of protested the stoppage. We've seen Dober hurt and recover before, but he did land pretty good on him. But I think that's just kind of a Matt Frivola thing. I don't think it's necessarily a Drew Dober chin thing. And I like Dober to be kind of pissed off and trying to come get this win after losing like that the first time. I think he's got the style that he could really do good work on Ricky Glenn as well. The striking's good. He's strong as can be. He's hard to take down. And his gas tank is good enough to where he's going to fight hard for all 3 rounds. Whereas Ricky Glenn, I could see maybe taking some big shots from Dober and it kind of depleting the gas tank and just Dober just kind of going from there, maybe getting a finish, just kind of wearing on him. And I could even see Dober finding that big knockout shot too against Ricky Glenn, considering, Ricky Glenn's coming off of a KO loss as well. It's kind of interesting, but I just think Dober bounces back pretty strong here from his loss.
Yeah, I mean, minus 400 is always a little sketchy coming off a knockout loss.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that Drew Dober fights, just he's going to slug it out with you. But I don't think Ricky Glenn is going to be able to, land that type of big power that Matt Frivola is. And if you look at, who Drew Dober's losing to, it's only ranked guys like Matt Frivola, Brad Riddell was ranked at the time, Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush. Other than that, like within the last 6 years, he's beaten everybody else. So the guy's fun to watch. He got that big left hand. He's going to march you down, use that Muay Thai of his. Whip some kicks in there as well. Ricky Glenn, I was thinking about it his last time against Christos Giagos, who we all know is like dangerous in that first round. And then he gets knocked out in the first round by him. So that was a bit of a layoff for him. He was a year and a half coming off of that fight. And like you said, I didn't really like what I saw. Looked a little slow, looked a little old, in my opinion, based just off of that 95-second fight. We'll see how he looks in this one, but I do think Drew Dober gets it done. And probably by knockout, I would think. I mean, the way that Drew Dober fights, it's like you're going to have to throw down. I don't think Ricky Glenn is going to fare too well in this one. If Drew Dober's chin is still that Giga Chad that he was, even the way he got knocked out by Frivola, some people think it was an early stoppage. He got up, a couple of seconds after he got knocked down. So I like Drew Dober in this one to get it done. It's not saying anything crazy based off the line, but yeah, I'll take him. Light heavyweight bout. Felipe Lins coming in at plus 120 against Iwan Cutelaba, sitting at minus 150. Over under 1.5 rounds, minus 115 for the over, minus 115 for the under. Felipe Lins, 38 years of age for him. He's had quite the career. and maybe towards the back end, but he's had a little bit of a resurgence in his career. 29 years of age for Ion Cutelaba. I was watching, his fights, and I was thinking like, dang, Ion Cutelaba looks undersized for 205. But then you got to factor in the fact that he's, fighting Kennedy and Nzechukwu, Johnny Walker, Ryan Spann. Those guys are all like 6'5". Last time out, fights Tanner Boser, who's, a little bit more his size, but he was a heavyweight moving down to 205. Gets it done in the first round by knockout. We know he's going to be dangerous in the first round. We know he's going to shoot takedowns. And in this one against Felipe Lins, we've been big on Felipe Lins, the past 2-3 fights, and he's gotten it done for us. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, but the level of competition I don't think is, near the level that Ion Cutelaba has been fighting at. So this is a test for him. 38 years of age, like I said, like it's kind of his go time now. He's a dog coming in this one. When he's made us money in the past, it's always tempting to go back and take him as a dog, but I don't know if I like this matchup for him. What are you thinking?
Yeah, betting wise, I think it might be dog or pass. Just because the one thing I look at here is Cutelaba, like you said, super dangerous in the first round. We've seen it time and time again. We saw it in those last fight live in Kansas City when he beat Tanner Boser in the first round, and he just comes with such aggression. I mean, even against Dustin Jacoby, took him down like 6-7 times in the first round, over and over. But he gasses out. And after he does, he's kind of a sitting duck. He gets hit a lot, and he gets rocked over and over, and he just doesn't really have much else to give. And sometimes he falls into that a guy hanging on for dear life. Now look at Felipe Lins. So far in his UFC career, 100% takedown defense. He's not exactly fighting guys who are, strong wrestlers by any means, but, guys that have tried, everybody's failed. He is a pretty big, strong guy. He's got some good striking as well. And like we've seen in the last few fights, man, he just finds ways to win. Even in close fights, he just does enough to get on the side of the judges. Now, against Cutelaba, man, I truly think if he just survives that first onslaught, Felipe Lins has the style and has the game to where he's just going to suck energy out of you. If Cutelaba just starts shooting sloppy takedowns, Lins is going to make him pay, stuff him, and he's going to get off with the boxing a little bit on Cutelaba. I don't know, man. He was our former pick of the week for our double leg Instagram, and he cashed for us big time against Grisham. But that's a completely different style. Like compared to Cutelaba, who's going to aggressively come at you every second he has energy, compared to Felipe Lins' last fight, it's kind of like night and day styles. Grisham was a little hesitant, likes to take a little slower pace. So it's going to be interesting to see how Felipe Lins deals with that first round onslaught of Cutelaba. But for the pick, I'm actually going to take Cutelaba to win this thing. I think the age difference is what's really pushing me towards Cutelaba here. At some point, Felipe Lins is going to look a step slower. He's not going to have that same energy and cardio as he did. And, even though he should win if he survives the first round, that first round onslaught is tough as shit to survive from Cutelaba. So I could see Cutelaba finding some kind of finish in round one.
Yeah, 14 of his 17 wins for Cutelaba come in the first round. So if you like the Lin side, you might want to, take it live after the first round and see how it looks. But on the Lin side, I mean, he was an ex-heavyweight, and he's a pretty built 205er. So might be a little bit tough to take down for Cutelaba, but I mean, he racks him up pretty quick. And the way that he's been losing a lot of these fights is, getting caught in submissions too. I don't really see a big submission threat from Felipe Lins. I think this is the time that I jump off the Lins train and I go with Ion Cutelaba because the level of competition doesn't compare whatsoever. And Cutelaba's at a good camp, Extreme Couture. Felipe Lins at a good camp too, American Top Team. But I just think this is the time that you jump off the train, like at some point he's going to have to lose. I don't really like the matchup for him because he's been fighting a lot of these older guys too, like OSP,
Yeah, exactly.
Christian, and fights that he can win. He can win this one too, but I think Ion Cutelaba gets it done. Featherweight bout here. Alexander Hernandez coming in at even money against Bill Algeo, sitting at -130. Over under 2.5 rounds, -120 for the over, -110 for the under. This is one I'm looking forward to. Bill Algeo. We saw him at UFC Kansas City get the win over TJ Brown in a pretty good scrap there. This one should be a good one too. Alexander Hernandez is always down to throw down. He was in a good fight his last time out against Jim Miller. Took that one on short notice and got it done by decision. But before that, back-to-back losses to Billy Q and Hanato Moicano. It's really been a factor of like blowing his load in the first round. And then we saw him against Jim Miller kind of pace himself a little bit more. And that was at 155. So he's bounced between 155, 145. 145, probably his right weight class. Bill Algeo, he's had a good run in the UFC as well. I mean, he had back-to-back wins against Joanderson Brito. That win ages pretty well. Performance of the night against Herbert Burns. Lost to Andre Fili in a split decision. And then the win over TJ Brown that I just talked about before, a finish in the second round by submission. So he's got good skills all around. I mean, on the feet, he's got good striking. On the ground, he's got good submissions. Alexander Hernandez, explosive athlete. I'm interested to see if he's going to take the same route in this one and kind of pace himself a little bit more. But, time will tell. What do you think in this one?
I kind of like Bill Algeo here. Hernandez is a guy who's kind of struggled at times in his UFC career. He's dangerous, though, on the feet. Like, he swings hard. He's got good boxing. He'll land some takedowns himself, but I think that part of each of these guys' game is going to kind of offset a little bit. Algeo showed in his last fight as well, too. If you want to try to take him down, he's got that good submission game in his back pocket as well. I do like Algeo's gas tank here. I like his volume on the feet. And, when he gets guys a little bit tired, he really pours it on. And he's not like the hardest hitter by any means. He doesn't go out there and flatline a lot of guys, but he does seem to outwork damn near every single one of his opponents in all of his wins. He has that loss recently to Andre Fili about a year ago, to the day almost, that I thought he won that fight. I mean, it's a split decision. It is what it is. Fili maybe had a couple of sequences where he could have finished the fight, but while the fight was standing, I thought Bill Algeo looked pretty good. In this fight against Hernandez, if he doesn't pace himself, it's kind of the same thing we talked about last fight. If Bill Algeo can survive some of those big shots in that first round while doing some decent work himself, rip the body like he does, come upstairs, and just get Hernandez a little bit tired, I think Algeo could start to run away with the fight somewhere in the middle of the second round to the third round. I mean, Hernandez found himself in trouble against Jim Miller in that last fight, late in the fight. And, Bill Algeo is a super long guy as well, to where if he gets in that position against Algeo, I think Algeo has the tools to even submit or finish Hernandez. But, with that long length and his knowledge and skills on the ground, I think it's going to be harder for Hernandez to survive against a guy like Bill compared to a Jim Miller. So I think Hernandez is a good fighter. Like I said, he struggled at a lot of points in his UFC career. But if you look, some of these volume strikers like Billy Quarantillo, guys like that kind of give him problems. I think Algeo can kind of fall into that category and, do some really good work here Saturday night. So at even money, like it's kind of hard not to take the guy who is coming off of a good win. A guy, who seems like he's got a little more potential and untapped potential at that, in Bill Algeo. So I'm going to stick with him here.
Yeah, Bill Algeo, pretty good frame for featherweight, 6 foot, 73-inch reach. Good striking differential as well, 5.3 or 9.3 compared to 4.32 absorbed. So he's got a good volume on the feet. I do think if he could survive round one, I do think he probably takes over. Might be another good live betting spot to look at because Hernandez usually really solid in that first round. Takes it against Billy Q, cuts him up hard, and then just kind of gasses out. So if Bill can stay in the fight, he's never been knocked out, so that's encouraging to take that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take it for the pick as well. I do think he can just, weather the storm. And if Hernandez doesn't come out hot, I think Bill can, get ahead early and maybe stay there. So I'm going to take Bill for the pick. And at minus 130, it's not bad. I would say it's probably pretty properly priced. But, minus 130, a playable line, we're looking at, minus 400s in a lot of these other fights. So I like it.
Yep.
Strawweight bout, Karolina Kowalkiewicz coming at minus 165 against Diana Belbita coming in at plus 135. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 375 for the over, plus 275 for the under. Karolina, 3-2 in her last 5. 37 years of age. She's been around forever. 27 years of age for Diana Belbita, coming off a win. You see the frame there. I mean, 5'7". That's pretty tall for a straw weight. 68-inch reach. And like I said, coming off a win back in UFC 289 in Canada. That was a much needed win for her. She was 1-3 in the UFC before that. She gets a win there. And she's getting a spot here against Carolina, who somewhat of a resurgence for her because she was on a 5-fight losing streak. Now she's on a 3-fight winning streak. And she's looked pretty good as of late. I mean, not the highest level of competition. You know, she kind of had to take a step back after that 5-fight losing streak. But wins over Felice Herrig, Silvana Gomez-Juarez, and Vanessa Demopolous. And watching the film on that, she doesn't look 37 years of age. I mean, she looks pretty good on the feet. I would expect this one to take place on the feet. Diana Belbita, kickboxer, and a lot of her losses have come by submission. So I don't think she's really going to want to take it to the ground. Carolina, though, I mean, we saw the submission win against Felice Herrig. That's a path that she could go down, too. I mean, she's shown in her last few fights, she'll go for the takedowns, too. Last fight against Demopolous, not somewhere that she wanted to be. She cleared that or outmatched on the feet, so she just kept it there. But maybe a path to get a finish in this one for her, maybe by submission. But I like Carolina in this one just because she's got that experience. I don't think Belbita's win over Maria Oliveira is anything like crazy. It wasn't like a dominant victory. It was a fairly close fight, all 3 rounds. Do think she won. But at the end of the day, I think Carolina just more experience, better all-around game, and I think she picks up a victory here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Carolina does too. You look at her record, and she did hit a really, really rough patch there at one point in the UFC on a 5-fight losing streak. But I mean, if you just skim over her record, she's fighting, Yao Shannon, Alexa Grasso, Michelle Watterson Gomez in 2019. You're getting 2018 Jessica Andrade, and losing to even Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in 2016 when Joanna was the champ, I believe, there. So, yeah, I mean, she's fighting the top girls in the division, and some of her losses come to really good fighters who are still at the top of the division. So you look at that compared to Diana Belbita. I mean, it's night and day the level of competition each of these fighters are fighting. I got to lean with the experience on Carolina. Belbita looked good in her last fight against Oliveira. It was a unanimous decision win, but she didn't do anything that really, blew you away by any means. Her striking, she outlanded Oliveira on the feet, looked pretty good doing it, but not a lot of sting on her shots. She's not going to go out there and knock out Carolina by any means. I think Carolina, maybe the more physical fighter as well here. Both girls throw pretty good volume, but I think that experience factor just takes over against a girl like Belbita, who's, 2-3 now in the UFC, and losing to girls like Gloria DePaula in her last fight before Oliveira. So that's not really a good sign to me. I think Maria Oliveira was probably just, not a good fighter, not UFC level, and she got the win there. I don't think she comes out and walks over Carolina Kowalkiewicz. So, yeah, I got to go with Carolina in this fight as well.
Only thing that scares me in this one is women's MMA.
Yeah.
When it gets down to like the judging, this fight is super favored to go to a decision. It's pretty subjective as far as, who's hitting harder. They both land a good amount of volume, a 6.59 for Belbita compared to 5.65 for Carolina. Longer career in the UFC to pick from for Carolina, but they both throw a lot of volume. I would encourage Carolina to maybe try to mix in a takedown or two, maybe try to look for a submission to get it done. She'll be the pick for me, but like I said, the only thing that scares me is just the judging, and that's kind of something that you got to think about nowadays with the weird judging that we're getting. But yeah, she'll be the pick for me. Bantamweight bout here. Johnny Munoz coming in at -115 against Aoriqileng, sitting at -115 as well. Over under 2.5 rounds, -110 for the over, -120 for the under. Johnny Munoz, 30 years of age, same with Aoriqileng, and a couple inches in reach and height for Johnny Munoz. He's coming off an awful performance, in my opinion, against Daniel Santos in a fight where he didn't really show me much. Like, the guy was, on his back, locking up a body lock from from his back, really not trying to do much to get out from the ground. He did get kicked in the nuts, I believe, and that was like I think he showed his pee or whatever, and it was like red.
Yeah.
And oh God, that probably had a little bit of factor into that one. So maybe give him a pass on that one. But Aoriqileng, last time out, gets knocked out by Amin Zahabi at UFC 289 in Canada as well. So both guys coming off losses. Not the highest level fight, but who do you thinking in this one? It's a pick 'em. So I mean, it's you're getting one side or the other. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think this is a Aoriqileng round 1 finish, or it's Johnny Munoz money line. If I'm being honest, I look at Aoriqileng, and yeah, he's coming off the knockout loss to Zahabi, who doesn't really knock a lot of people out anymore. And then before that, he's getting beat by, or he's beating Jay Perrin. Like, if you remember right, Jay Perrin lost to Raul Rosas Jr. and they got cut by the UFC. Never really had much success in the UFC at all. But in that fight, Jay Perrin was able to take Aoriqileng down 3 times. And, Aoriqileng is going to be moving up a weight division in this fight. And I believe, right? Is that right? Or is he going back and forth? For some reason in my notes I had that he's moving down to, or he's moving up a weight division here, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I think
Either way.
Yeah, 135.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Either way, I think Aoriqileng has kind of hit his ceiling. Like, we know what we're getting with him. He's got power. He's a good striker. He slows down as fights go on. And I just don't like the footwork and head movement a lot. I think he's pretty stationary. I think he gets hit a little bit, which maybe when you think about it, he might not have to worry about that as much with a guy like Munoz, who is known for his jiu-jitsu and his grappling, but he's also getting better on the feet too. That you kind of see if you watch him from the regional scene to where he is now. Like, his technicalities are better. He swings pretty hard. Like, if he catches Aoriqileng, he could hurt him. But I do think at some point Johnny Munoz could get it to the ground, and I think Munoz is going to be a lot better of a grappler than other UFC fighters that Aoriqileng has fought. And I think that's kind of the difference in the fight here. Aoriqileng will go for takedowns himself. I just don't know if Johnny Munoz is the guy he wants to kind of test that on. Again, I think Munoz should get this win. I'm thinking his ceiling's a little higher. He still has room to improve and probably has been improving, or at least you would think he has been. But if the fight hits the ground, I think he could rack up control time, and I think he could even look for submissions in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's probably his best path to victory, is try to get it to the ground if you're Johnny Munoz, because he's got a bunch of submissions on his record, 7 to be exact. That's a pretty good number. He's never been submitted. But then you look at Aoriqileng, he's got 3 submission losses. And on the feet, he's not a bad striker. I mean, he racks up a good amount of volume. Aoriqileng does get hit a good amount as well. Actually got outstruck by Jay Perrin in his win. And then his other win in the UFC is Cameron Else, which is like not very good. But yeah, this one is not the highest level between both guys. I want to give Johnny a pass. His last fight, it just didn't look good at all. But I do think he should probably win this one, because there's a little bit more to get encouraged by in this one. I think Johnny has a lot of potential, but just never really put it together. I would probably take Johnny for the pick. I don't know if I'll be betting on it. Maybe a submission prop, something like that. Aoriqileng, coming off the knockout loss to Amin Zahabi, I'm like, God dang, like, how do you get knocked out by Amin Zahabi? And it was flatline too. So yeah. I don't know where he's at with that. But yeah, for the pick, I'm going to go with Johnny Munoz. Just a greasy fight overall, in my opinion. Strawweight bout, Vanessa Demopolous coming in at plus 270 against Kanako Murata, sitting at minus 370. Over under 2.5 rounds, minus 250 for the over, plus 200 for the under. Vanessa Demopolous, 3-2 in her last 5, 35 years of age for her. She hasn't had the longest career, and she's got to do something now if she wants to move up the rankings, but she's coming in as an underdog in this one to Kanako Murata, who's had quite the layoff for her, 12-2 in her professional career, but she hasn't fought since 2021 in June. So it's over 2 years layoff for her. She had an injury in that one, and that was a loss to Verna Janjarova. Either way, she's coming in as a favorite against Demopolous. With the long layoff, are you getting invested in that or no?
I think minus 370. First of all, in women's MMA is crazy as it is, but minus 370 off of that big of a layoff is even crazier. I do think she wins the fight, but betting wise, it's like you can't really even put that in a parlay. There's so many unknowns with how she's going to look coming back off this. For Demopolous, she's good when she can implement her game plan, when she can get takedowns, and when she can use that top control and the pressure to look for submissions and work like that. But I don't see that happening here against Murata. I think Murata will be strong enough to keep this fight where she wants it, keep it on the feet. And I think she could even land a takedown or two of herself here. And if she does, I just don't think Vanessa will be able to fight off of her back well enough to pull off a crazy submission or something like that against Murata. I think Murata is equal or even better on the ground than Vanessa is going to be here. Vanessa Demopolous is fun. She's always got the fun, post-fight press conference and interview in the cage. But when it comes down to fighting, I think Murata, if she comes back healthy and she's been working on her game, I think she should win this pretty easy. But minus 370 is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it at UFC Vegas 79 when I forget the Japanese girl's name, but when she fought Hannah Goldie, she was a big favorite coming off the layoff. She got it done, but it wasn't like, the price tag didn't really look the best when you watch the fight. So could be getting something like that here. You always want to be cautious of the submission game from Demopolous because that's where she racks up a lot of her wins, 4 of them to be exact, a couple decision wins in the UFC. I mean, if she can make it close, it might be worth taking a dog shot, but Murata, she had a pretty good career before the UFC. I mean, she fought in Ryzen. She was 5-1 in there, 2-0 in Invicta, wins over Emily Ducote, who's in the UFC now and looks pretty decent. And then a win over Randa Marcos in her UFC debut. I don't know. I mean, this is greasy women's MMA. I'll take Murata for the pick, but probably not a chance that I'm going to take it as far as the betting stance goes.
Yep.
Maybe when you just want to lay off or maybe take a break from watching, but it's early in the card. So yeah, Murata will be the pick for me. Flyweight bout here, Nate Maness coming in at plus 210 against Mateus Mendonca, sitting at minus 260. Over under 2.5 rounds. Even money for the over, minus 130 for the under. This one, based off of that over under, I'm kind of like the under. But you're looking at Nate Maness, 32 years of age, 5'10" for a flyweight. I believe he's the tallest flyweight on the roster. Pretty big frame. But we saw his last fight when he made 125. It looked like he was on death's door. Mateus Mendonca, 24 years of age, made his UFC debut against Javid Basharat and lost that one. That was at the end of last year, I believe. So he's been on a bit of a layoff, but coming back here and trying to get a win. I mean, he's a favorite in this one. Nate Maness, UFC career, he's 3-2, but he's lost his last 2 fights to Umar Nurmagomedov and Tagir Ulanbekov. Not the 2 worst guys that you could lose to, but he gets subbed in the first round against Tagir Ulanbekov in his flyweight debut. So this is an interesting one. I mean, Mendonca training out of Shoot the Box. He's a young guy coming in as a big favorite. He's explosive. We saw on the Contender Series, he had a 48-second knockout in the first round to get a contract there. He was scheduled to fight Castaneda in June of this year, and that fight got canceled. Finally getting a fight here. I'm interested to see how he looks after coming back from his first career loss. I'm excited to watch him because he's pretty fun to watch. Explosive, fast hands, big power. And we'll see if he can get it done. I like him. I don't know if I like the price tag, but I like him to get it done. What do you think in this one?
Yeah, the price tag, it's hard. It's hard to bet that at chalk because we still haven't really seen him that much in the UFC. Obviously, we saw him against Javid Basharat, but Javid's a monster. Like that's a tough first fight in the UFC. And ultimately, I think a loss like that kind of makes you better. Like back to the drawing board, you take your first career loss, you get that monkey off your back. You don't have to worry about that anymore, and you can kind of just go out there and fight. Love the style. Stylistically, I think it's a tough matchup for Nate Maness. You do look at his strike differential, and he lands 2.41 and then gets hit with 6.27. But I kind of scratched that out to not even pay attention to, because it's based off basically one fight, and it was Javid Basharat, who's insanely technical on the feet and has a phenomenal volume. So kind of give him a pass there. For Maness, like if he looks like he did in his last fight, cutting down in that weight cut, I think you just hammer Mendonca inside the distance or take the under 2.5, because dude, he looks so bad that it was like concerning in all those pictures that were circulating. And he hasn't necessarily been dealt any favors by the UFC, getting Umar Nurmagomedov and Tajir Ulanbekov back to back. But in this fight, if he gets taken down to the ground, I could see Mendonca trying to pull off a submission here. He's got some on his record. He's got that style to where he's always going to be looking for the finish. I do think he gets it done. Don't like the price tag, but as you mentioned, I really do like that under 2.5, because Nate Maness he'll go for the kill as well, and he can kind of do it by submission or a knockout. Probably is what I would lean to if he gets the win here. But I do like violence in this spot a lot.
Yeah, I think one way to get it down, that price tag down, is probably just take Mendonca inside the distance.
Yeah.
Because Nate Maness has been finished a couple times, just coming off a finish. And basically, watch that fight against Umar. The guy, he got outstruck in that fight. It was a decision loss. Got outstruck 2-74. And I don't know, maybe off of that fight, he was like, all right, fuck it. Like, if I'm going to lose a fight, I'm going to go down swinging. Next fight gets subbed. Those are two tough opponents, but I do think Mendonca fought a tough opponent as well in his debut. 24 years of age. Got to think he's always getting better. And I do think he's got a good career ahead of him. He is coming down to 125 as well. He fought Javid at 135. So we'll see how he looks on the scales as well. But he'll be the pick for me. And like I said, if you want to get it down a little bit, maybe look for a finish prop, because that's where most of his wins are coming. And Nate Maness with that weight cut, don't know how he's going to look. Definitely keep an eye on that. But Mendonca will be the pick for me. Flyweight bout, Montana De La Rosa coming in at -135 against JJ Aldrich, sitting at +105. Over under 2.5 rounds, -400 for the over, +300 for the under. It's a JJ Aldrich fight when it's -400 for the over. But her last fight, she did get a win, and it was by finish against none other than Liang Na, who might be the worst fighter ever on the roster. But it's a win nonetheless. She was on a 2-fight skid, lost Erin Blanchfield and Ariane Lipski. She lost that fight to Lipski as a -360 favorite. So that was a bad look. Just an awful performance. Lipski looked like she was a step ahead of her on the feet. 31 years of age for Aldrich, 28 years of age for Montana De La Rosa. And she's on a 2-fight skid as well. But you look at the opponents, Tatiana Suarez, Macy Barber, it's not the worst losses. And then she did have a win over Ariane Lipski back in 2021. So she's coming in as a slight favorite. I'm not a big JJ Aldrich guy. I do think Montana De La Rosa probably gets this one done. It's women's MMA, though. You never really know. But I do think she's the side here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm on full fade mode on JJ Aldrich, just from what I've seen in her last 3 fights. Like, even her last fight, she's supposed to beat Liang Na. Na was not a good fighter. She's a little dangerous at the start, but everybody's beating her after that first few minutes. So yeah, JJ, she's beat some, dare I say, bums. She's lost to some bums. She was taken down by Na 3 times in that first, minute and a half of the fight, which if she's getting taken down by Liang Na, and I know Na's got some grappling and she's strong, but Montana De La Rosa is pretty physically strong as well, and has that takedown in her back pocket. And if she gets on top of JJ, I think JJ could be in some trouble here. I think Montana's good on the ground. I think if she gets the fight there, she should be the better fighter. You look at Montana's record, Tatiana Suarez, okay, kind of give you a pass on that one. Suarez is a monster. Macy Barber, she lost that fight convincingly, but there was a few times when she had Macy almost down to the ground through like a, almost like a bulldog choke throw, something, weird, just by upper body strength alone. If she can get in on JJ, around the waist, lower, single leg, double leg, I think she takes her down here. I really do. Just have never really been impressed with JJ Aldrich. De La Rosa, not the most impressive, especially on the feet. She she struggles at times. But I think she's just going to get into the clinch and not really even have to worry about the striking here. And I think JJ, does have some wrestling and grappling in her back pocket as well. I think she'll be content to play that game until she gets taken down. But overall, I think Montana should be more aggressive. She should be a little bit stronger. And if it hits the mat, she'll be the better fighter on the ground, in my opinion. So I'm going to stick with Montana De La Rosa here.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, you look at the losses for De La Rosa, like they're not bad. Suarez,
Yeah.
Barber, Arujo, Andrea Lee. And she's been around for a while too. She was on the Ultimate Fighter season 26. Same with JJ. She was on the Ultimate Fighter as well a long time ago. A lot of their career has been in the UFC. That's why 12-8-1 isn't like the best record, but De La Rosa been fighting good competition. I mean, she went to a draw with Mayra Bueno Silva, who's inching towards the top of the bantamweight division now. So there's that. The win over Lipsky looked pretty good, and I think she could get JJ to the ground and just outmuscle her. I mean, De La Rosa, pretty big frame for 125, 5'7", and after fighting girls like Suarez and Macy Barber, who are stronger, better, grapplers, I would say, I think she's going to go against JJ and look pretty good. And on the feet, it's not like JJ has like some insane striking either. I'm not really scared of that. So I think De La Rosa is the side. And I believe De La Rosa she was supposed to fight Stephanie Egger. So it's a short notice fight for JJ Aldrich. So that just makes me more confident in De La Rosa. And this one, she'll be the pick for me. And I'll probably have a play on her as well going into the weekend.
Already got one.
That's right.
Let's go.
Last fight, this was the one that got switched. It was supposed to be Gutierrez versus Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson pulls out, so we get Alatengheili stepping in to face Chris Gutierrez. There's no odds out right now because it just got announced like 2 hours ago. So stay tuned for that. But either way, we'll give our prediction on this one. Gutierrez 4-1 in his last 5, 32 years of age for him, and Alatengheili 3-1-1. Going back to Chris Gutierrez, his loss was against Pedro Munoz. He was a favorite in that one. Didn't look good. He just kind of got cracked against Pedro Munoz, and that was really the big difference. Like, Gutierrez is a volume striker, going to use a lot of kicks. He's going to mix it up from the outside, and Pedro was just able to land the bigger shots and win it that way. In this one against Alatengheili, I don't know if Alatengheili can do that because he's not, near the level of Pedro Munoz. So I'm expecting Gutierrez to be a pretty sizable favorite in this one. I'm thinking maybe minus 350, minus 400. We're probably, especially with short notice, you're probably going to get a wider line. Gutierrez is a person that most people know at this point, if you're a UFC fan or if you watch the UFC every weekend. So I would expect action to come on Gutierrez, but giving Alatengheili any kind of chance in this one?
I hate that it's short notice. Like, that's the one thing here that sucks for him because he's going to have that game plan where he's going to try to get you to the ground. We've seen it in the past, him get the takedowns. He does good work from there. But Chris Gutierrez, 74% takedown defense. Alatengheili, Tang, I can never say his name. I'm just going to call it Alateng. When he's forced to stand and strike, he gets pieced up a little bit. He's not very volume heavy. He doesn't push a great pace on the feet, but he does get hit a little bit. And on short notice against Chris, maybe he gets a takedown early, but if he can't, I think Chris just works the legs, works the body with the kicks. At southpaw, it's going to be hard to deal with that body kick for Alatengheili, in my opinion. And there's no reason Chris Gutierrez should really lose this fight. Outside of the Pedro Munoz fight, he was kind of on a tear inside the UFC, had the draw with Cody Durden. And besides that, he lost his debut against Raoni Barcelos in 2018. Hasn't lost since then. So, I expect him to bounce back from Pedro Munoz here. I think this is a way, way better matchup for him than Montel Jackson would have been. Jackson was kind of scary to think like Gutierrez might go on a 2-fight skid here because Jackson's a savage everywhere. But for him against Alateng here, I do think that, early in the first round, it might look somewhat close, but as it goes on, Chris Gutierrez is going to pour it on him.
Yeah, I mean, Alatengheili is 4-1-1 in the UFC, but I mean the wins aren't like anything crazy. Chad Hellinger, Kevin Karoom, Ryan Benoit, and or Benoit and Dana Bakary lost to Casey Kenny in a fight that he got dominated in. I would expect Gutierrez to get this one done. Kind of a weird draw for him because he's taken on a good opponent in Montel, and he was the underdog in that one. Now he's going to be what I think would be probably sizable favorite against Alatengheili. I mean, if Alatengheili can make it dirty, if he can get on the inside and make Gutierrez, uncomfortable, he's kind of got a similar frame to a Pedro Munoz, but I don't think he's got near the skills. He's got a negative strike differential as well. I mean, he gets hit a good amount. I think Gutierrez probably racks up a bunch of significant strikes. And Alatengheili has been knocked out a few times in his career as well. So that's a spot that I'm going to be looking at as far as, decision or KO. Alateng's been knocked out 3 times to be exact. I think Gutierrez gets it done. He'll be the pick for me. And we'll see what that line is when it comes out. But yeah, I would expect it to be pretty wide. Those are the picks for UFC Vegas or Vegas 80, actually, because we're done with the 70s. We're moving on to the 80s. And hopefully it stops somewhat soon here because the Apex cards they're racking them up pretty quickly. And it looks like they got a good amount of them scheduled for the future as well. So it is what it is. We're getting fights on a Saturday. We didn't have them last week, so I'm not going to complain whatsoever. But yeah, if you want the bets, jump in the double leg premium. Link is in the description for that. Get you every single UFC card every week for less than $1 a day. Or you can get the instant download on Friday when that is available on at the double leg on Instagram. Stay up to date there when that is available. We got Contender Series tomorrow, so don't miss that as well. Those are free bets, instant download there at the double leg as well on Instagram. Follow me on all the medias at HeyJaiPicks. Where can they find you?
All social media is at the Parlay MMA.
Thank you guys for all the support. Drop a subscription if you want to support the channel as well. Hit the like button for us. And we'll see you in the next video when we're recapping the card. Till then, the double leg signing out.